She delivered formula to the wrong mansion. When the Mafia boss saw her twins, he froze. The boy had his exact rare silver eyes. She tried to leave fast, but he recognized the lullaby her son was humming. A song only his family knew. Now he's asking questions she spent 3 years running from. The GPS died 3 miles back, but Sienna knew she was close when the streetlights disappeared. Nothing good ever happened in neighborhoods without streetlights. She'd learned that the hard way in Chicago, then again in Detroit, and now apparently in the outskirts of Naples, Florida. The delivery van's headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating a massive iron gate with roses welded into the metalwork. Red roses. Of course they were red. "Mommy, are we there yet?" Sophia's voice piped up from the back, small and sleepy. "Almost, baby. Stay buckled." Sienna checked the delivery address again on her phone. 1247, Oleander Drive. Specialty formula imported from Switzerland. Rush delivery. The kind of order that paid 3 times the normal rate, which meant she couldn't afford to mess it up. The kind of order that made her stomach twist with unease. She pressed the intercom button at the gate. Static crackled, then a male voice, flat and professional. "State your business." "Delivery from Medicare Express." "I have a package for..." She squinted at the name on the label. L. Moretti. The silence stretched long enough that she wondered if she'd need to turn back. Then the gates groaned open, revealing a driveway lined with palm trees and armed men. Her hands tightened on the steering wheel. Armed men. At a private residence. In Florida. Nothing about this was normal, but normal didn't pay for Marco's inhaler or the overdue electric bill. She drove slowly up the curved driveway, hyper-aware of eyes following her van. The mansion at the end looked like something from a movie. 3 stories of white stone and glass, fountain in the center courtyard, luxury cars parked in neat rows. This was money. Old money, or criminal money, or both. Sienna parked near the entrance and grabbed the insulated package from the passenger seat. "Stay in the car," she told the twins. "I'll be right back." "But Mommy." "Sophia. Stay." She stepped out into humid night air that smelled like jasmine and something else. Danger, maybe. Or just her paranoia working overtime. The front door opened before she could knock. A man emerged, and Sienna's breath caught in her throat. He was tall, probably 6'2", wearing an expensive black shirt with the sleeves rolled up. Dark hair, sharp jaw, the kind of face that belonged on magazine covers or wanted posters. But it was his eyes that stopped her cold. Silver gray, almost luminescent in the porch light. Unusual. Striking.
Familiar. No. Impossible.
The formula? His voice was deep, accented with something that wasn't quite Southern. New York, maybe. Or New Jersey. "Yes, sir. I need a signature." She held out her tablet with shaking hands that she hoped he wouldn't notice. He took the tablet, and his fingers brushed hers.
Warm. Calloused.
For a fraction of a second, his eyes met hers fully, and something passed between them. Recognition, confusion, a door opening in both their minds simultaneously. Then Sophia shrieked from the van. Sienna spun around, her heart exploding. Sophia. But her daughter wasn't in danger. She'd unbuckled herself and climbed over Marco to escape through the side door, and now both twins were tumbling out onto the driveway, giggling like this was a playground instead of a potential crime scene. No, no, no. Sienna rushed toward them, but Marco had already wandered up to the fountain, fascinated by the water lit from below. Marco, Sophia, back in the van right now. "Pretty," Sophia declared, pointing at the roses climbing the mansion's facade. The man, Moretti, had gone completely still. He stood frozen on the steps, the tablet forgotten in his hand, staring at the children with an expression Sienna couldn't read. Horror? Shock? Then Marco turned around, his small face illuminated by the fountain lights. Sienna watched Moretti's face drain of color. Marco had the same eyes. Those same impossible silver-gray eyes that she'd only seen once before, for years ago in a dingy apartment in Prague, when she'd pulled a bleeding man inside and saved his life before he disappeared like smoke. Where? Moretti's voice came out strangled. He cleared his throat, descended the steps slowly, carefully, like he was approaching wild animals. Where did they come from? They're mine, Sienna said quickly, moving between him and the twins. I'm sorry, they were supposed to stay in the car.
How old are they?
The question was too sharp, too intense. Sienna's instincts screamed at her to grab the kids and run, but 3 armed men had materialized from the shadows, blocking the driveway exit. 3, she said, lifting her chin. They just turned 3. Marco hummed while staring at the water. A melody, soft and wandering. An old Italian lullaby that Sienna had heard only once, sung by a man who'd been half delirious with fever, who'd told her it was his mother's song, from a village in the mountains she'd never find on a map. Moretti's hand went to his chest, like he'd been shot. Where did he learn that song? The words came out barely above a whisper. I taught him, Sienna lied, gathering Sophia into her arms. It's just a lullaby. That lullaby. Moretti took another step closer, and Sienna saw his hands trembling. My grandmother sang that. My mother sang it to me. It's not recorded anywhere. It's not possible for him to know it. The air between them crystallized with understanding and denial, and 4 years of missing pieces. Sign the tablet, Sienna said coldly. I need to go. You know who I am, it wasn't a question. I know you're a customer who needs to sign for his delivery. You knew me. Before, his eyes burned into hers. Prague. 4 years ago. You pulled me inside when I was bleeding. You stitched my shoulder in your bathtub. Sienna's throat closed. You're mistaken. You had a poster of the Charles Bridge above your bed. You made terrible coffee. You hummed while you cleaned the wound, his voice cracked. You told me your name was Anna. Sophia squirmed in her arms. Marco kept humming, oblivious to the adult's tension. Mr. Moretti, one of the guards called out. Should we? Everyone inside. Now Moretti's command voice returned, hard and absolute. Let them leave. He signed the tablet without looking at it, thrust it back at Sienna. Their eyes met again, and this time she saw everything he wasn't saying. I know. I remember. Are they mine? Go, he said quietly. But Sienna, that's your real name, isn't it? This isn't over. She buckled the twins into the van with shaking hands, her mind screaming at her to drive faster, but Marco's voice drifted from the back seat. Mommy, why does that man look like me? In her rearview mirror, she watched Luca Moretti standing in his driveway, watching them disappear into the darkness, his hand still pressed against his chest like he was trying to hold his heart inside. And Sienna knew, with absolute certainty, that her invisible life had just shattered into 1,000 pieces. Luca Moretti hadn't felt fear in 12 years. Not since the night his father was murdered in front of him. Not since he'd taken over the Red Rose Syndicate at 20 and learned to bury every soft emotion under layers of ice and strategy. But watching that delivery van disappear down his driveway, taillights bleeding red into the darkness, he felt something worse than fear. He felt the past crawling out of its grave. Boss. Carlo, his head of security, approached cautiously. You want us to run the plates? No, Luca's voice sounded distant to his own ears.
Yes.
I don't know. Give me a minute. He walked back into the house on autopilot, through the marble foyer, past the surveillance room where his men monitored 18 different camera feeds. He climbed the stairs to his office and locked the door behind him. Then he pulled out the bottom drawer of his desk and retrieved a small wooden box he hadn't opened in 4 years. Inside, a faded receipt from a cafe in Prague, a torn piece of fabric, blue cotton, from the shirt she'd given him when his was soaked with blood, and a photograph he'd taken when she wasn't looking, asleep on her ratty couch with medical textbooks scattered around her. He'd left it all behind when he fled Prague, then gone back for it 2 months later, after the heat died down, because he couldn't stop thinking about the girl who'd saved him without asking questions. By then, her apartment was empty. Neighbors said she'd moved suddenly. No forwarding address. He'd try to find her. Spent resources, called in favors. But Anna, if that was even her real name, had vanished completely. Eventually, he'd convinced himself it was better that way. His world was bloodshed and betrayal. She'd been studying to be a nurse, for God's sake. She deserved better than a man with a target on his back. Now she was here, in Naples, with twins. 3-year-old twins. Luca's hands shook as he did the math he'd been trying to avoid. 3 years old. Born roughly 9 months after Prague. After that week when he'd been too weak to leave her apartment, when she'd slept on the floor so he could have the bed, when he'd finally felt safe enough to close his eyes and sleep without a weapon in his hand. The boy had his eyes. The Moretti eyes, rare and distinctive, documented in family records going back 6 generations. His grandmother used to say they were a gift from the old country, from mountain wolves who mated with the moon. And the lullaby. Christ, the lullaby.
Dormi, dormi, bel bambino.
Dormi, dormi, piccolino. His mother had sung it. Her mother before her. It was never written down, never recorded. You couldn't find it on the internet or in music books. It existed only in the memories of Moretti women and the children they raised. He'd sung it once, delirious with fever in that Prague apartment, when Anna, Sienna, had been changing his bandages and he'd been convinced he was dying. He'd sung his mother's lullaby because it made him feel 5 years old again, safe in his childhood bed before the world turned violent. How had the boy learned it unless? A knock interrupted his spiral. "Boss, we got the information," Carlo's voice, muffled through the heavy door. Luca opened it. Carlo handed him a tablet with the van's registration and driver's license information.
Siena Costa.
Age 28. Address in the low-rent district near the port. CDL valid. 3 minor traffic violations. No criminal record.
No warrants.
He zoomed in on her license photo. Even in the terrible DMV lighting, she was beautiful. Tired, but beautiful. Brown eyes that had looked at him with such suspicion tonight. So different from the warmth he remembered in Prague. "Want me to bring her in for questioning?" Carlo asked carefully. No, the word came out too fast, too sharp. Carlo's eyebrows rose. "Boss, if she's connected to the Prague situation." "She's not," Luca set down the tablet. "She's a delivery driver. Wrong place, wrong time. Those kids." "Drop it, Carlo." But Carlo had been with him too long to be intimidated. "The boy has your eyes. Anyone who saw them saw it. Vittorio definitely saw it. If you don't control this narrative, someone else will." Luca's jaw tightened.
Vittorio.
His second-in-command, ambitious and ruthless, always looking for leverage. Always waiting for Luca to show weakness. And what was weaker than a secret child? 2 secret children. In the Mafia, family was currency. Family was leverage. Family was a weapon that enemies could use to make you bleed. "What do you want me to do?" Carlo asked quietly. Luca stared at the tablet screen, at Sienna's wary eyes looking back at him. She'd saved his life, once, without asking for anything in return. She'd disappeared rather than trap him. She'd raised 2 children alone, working delivery jobs in the middle of the night. She'd kept them secret for a reason. "Quiet surveillance only," he said finally. "I want to know if anyone approaches her, threatens her, even looks at her wrong. But she doesn't know about it. No contact.
No interference.
She stays invisible. And if Vittorio asks about tonight, tell him the truth. A delivery driver. Her kids wandered out. That's all." Carlo nodded, but his expression said he knew it was a lie. Everyone who'd been in that driveway knew it was a lie. Luca waited until Carlo left, then pulled out his phone. He scrolled through his contacts until he found his hacker, a 22-year-old genius named Felix, who could find digital dirt on anyone. Then he stopped. If he investigated Sienna, he'd know everything. where she worked, who she talked to, what she bought at the grocery store. He'd know if the children were his, a simple DNA test, a strand of hair from her brush. But she'd kept them secret for 3 years. She'd looked him in the eye tonight and lied about the lullaby, protecting them even when cornered. She didn't want him in their lives. And maybe she was right. Maybe the best thing Luca Moretti could do for those children was stay away. Let them grow up invisible, safe from the violence that followed his name like a shadow. He put the phone down. But across town, in a small apartment that smelled like mildew and failed dreams, Sienna Costa was packing their bags with shaking hands, knowing that invisibility was no longer an option. And neither of them noticed the black sedan parked outside her building, or the man inside making a phone call to Vittorio Caschio, reporting that the delivery girl and her very interesting children were on the move. Luca lasted 6 hours. 6 hours of pretending to review shipping manifests while his mind replayed the sound of that lullaby. 6 hours of sitting through a meeting with his accountants while seeing those silver-gray eyes staring back at him from a 3-year-old face. At 4 a.m, he broke. Felix, he made the call from his secure line. I need information. Quietly. How quietly? Felix's voice was alert despite the hour. The kid never slept. Ghost protocol. No digital footprints. Nothing that traces back to me or the syndicate. A pause. Boss, that's expensive quiet. I don't care. I need everything on Sienna Costa. He rattled off her address, license number. But Felix, public records only. No hacking her phone. No accessing her emails or bank accounts. I want to know who she is, not invade her life. That's not how I usually work. Tonight it is. Luca rubbed his temples. Employment history, known associates, where she lived before Naples. Nothing illegal. Nothing she wouldn't put on a resume. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Can you do it or not? Give me 3 hours. Luca hung up and poured himself a whiskey he didn't drink. The restraint felt important somehow. He could have Felix crack every password, read every text message, watch her through her webcam. In his world, privacy was a myth and information was power. But Sienna had saved his life in Prague without taking anything from him. She'd asked no questions, demanded no payment. When he tried to leave money on her counter, she chased him down the street and shoved it back into his jacket with fierce pride. I didn't help you for money, she'd said. I helped you because you were bleeding on my doorstep. He owed her at least the courtesy of not ripping her life apart like a crime scene. Felix called back at 7:15. Your delivery girl is squeaky clean, he said. Almost suspiciously clean. Luca's chest tightened. Explain.
Sienna Marie Costa.
Born in Chicago. Parents died in a car accident when she was 16. She was in the car, spent 2 months in the hospital. Raised after that by her grandmother in Detroit. Attended community college, started pre-med program. Then Felix paused. She disappears. What do you mean, disappears? I mean there's a gap. She withdraws from school in 2020. No forwarding address. No employment records, no rental agreements, no credit card activity. For 18 months, Sienna Costa doesn't exist on paper.
Prague.
She'd been in Prague. Luca's hands gripped the phone tighter. Then she resurfaces in Detroit, June 2021. Working 2 jobs, diner waitress and medical supply delivery. Grandmother dies that September. She disappears again briefly, then shows up in Naples 3 months ago. Currently working for Medicare Express, filing taxes as a single mother with 2 dependents. What about the children? Birth certificates. That's where it gets interesting. Twins, Marco and Sofia Costa. Born in Detroit, April 2022. But boss, the birth certificates list father as unknown. Unknown. Not a lie exactly, but not the truth either. Luca wondered what she'd been thinking, filling out that paperwork alone in some hospital room. Had she considered tracking him down? Had she wanted to? Financial situation? He asked. Rough. She's barely scraping by. Rent's overdue. She's got medical bills. Looks like one of the kids has asthma. Needs regular medication. She's working 3 different delivery contracts, pulling doubles most nights.
No savings, no assets.
No criminal record, not even a parking ticket in the past 2 years. Luca closed his eyes. 3 jobs. Medical bills. Raising twins alone while he'd been sitting in his mansion, managing millions in legitimate and illegitimate businesses. Known associates. None that raise flags. Neighbor who babysits sometimes, elderly woman clean. Coworker at the medical supply company who she carpools with occasionally. That's it. She doesn't go out, doesn't socialize. It's work, kids, home. She's basically invisible. Invisible by design. Sienna had learned to disappear, to leave no trace. One more thing, Felix added. There's been some unusual activity around our apartment building in the past few hours.
Luca straightened.
What kind of activity? Traffic cameras picked up a black Escalade, circled the block 4 times between midnight and 2 a.m. No plates visible, probably covered. That's not normal patrol pattern. Can you identify the vehicle? Working on it. But boss, if someone else is interested in your delivery girl, she's not mine. The words felt like broken glass in his throat. Whatever you say. Want me to keep monitoring?
Yes.
But Felix, I want protection protocols, not surveillance. If anyone approaches her, threatens her, I want to know immediately. But don't interfere with her life. She doesn't know you're watching.
Protective surveillance.
Got it, Felix hesitated. Boss, can I ask why we're protecting a random delivery driver?
No.
Are those kids? Good night, Felix. Luca ended the call and stood at his office window, watching dawn break over the Gulf of Mexico. The water turned from black to silver gray, the color of his mother's eyes. His grandmother's eyes. His eyes. Marco's eyes. The timeline was perfect. The evidence was circumstantial but compelling. And yet, Sienna had chosen not to tell him. For 3 years, she'd raised his children alone, working herself to exhaustion, rather than knock on his door and ask for help. That meant something. Either she didn't know who he really was, didn't know the bleeding man she'd saved was Luca Moretti, one of the most powerful crime bosses in Florida. Or she knew exactly who he was and wanted her children nowhere near his world. Both possibilities hurt. A knock on his door. Boss, Vittorio's here. Says it's urgent. Luca's stomach sank. He checked his appearance in the mirror, made sure his face showed nothing but cold calculation, then opened the door. Vittorio stood in the hallway, impeccably dressed as always, holding a manila folder. We need to talk, Vittorio said, about your visitor last night. He opened the folder. Inside were surveillance photos, Sienna loading the twins into her van, Marco at the fountain, Sophia pointing at the roses, and one crystal-clear close-up of Marco's face, those unmistakable Moretti eyes staring directly at the camera. Want to tell me, Vittorio said softly, why nobody delivery girl is carrying around a child with your family's bloodline written all over his face? Luca's mind raced through a dozen strategies, a dozen lies. But he could see the trap already closing. Vittorio hadn't come here for answers. He'd come to watch Luca squirm. The alarm went off at 4:45 a.m., but Sienna had been awake for hours. She stood at the kitchen window of their tiny apartment, watching the street below for any sign of the black car she'd noticed last night. It had been parked across from their building when they got home, engine running, windows tinted too dark to see inside. Probably nothing. Probably paranoia. But probably wasn't good enough when you had 2 3-year-olds depending on you. Mommy? Sophia's small voice came from the doorway. Why are you up? Sienna forced a smile and turned away from the window. Just checking the weather, baby. Go back to bed. Can't sleep. Marco's coughing again. And there it was. The sound that made Sienna's chest tight with worry and guilt. That wheeze from the bedroom. The rattle that meant Marco's asthma was flaring up. She'd been rationing his medication to make it last until payday, and now he was paying the price. She went to their bedroom, the only bedroom in the apartment, which the twins shared while she slept on the pull-out couch. Marco was sitting up, small chest heaving, trying to breathe through the tightness. Hey, buddy. She grabbed his inhaler from the nightstand, Check the counter. 3 doses left. 3 doses to last 5 more days until her check cleared. She helped him with the inhaler, rubbed his back until his breathing eased. Better? He nodded, then looked up at her with those impossible silver eyes. Mommy, who is that man? At the big house. Sienna's throat closed. Just a customer, sweetheart. But he knew the song. Nana's song. Marco's grandmother had been dead for 3 years, but Sienna had told him the lullaby came from his great-grandmother, not from a bleeding stranger in Prague. Lots of people know that song. He looked like me, Marco said quietly. Sophia said so too. From the doorway, Sophia nodded solemnly. He has the same eyes. Like looking in a mirror. 3-year-olds weren't supposed to be this observant. Then again, 3-year-olds raised by a mother who constantly looked over her shoulder learned to notice things. Some people just look similar, Sienna said, tucking them both back in. It doesn't mean anything. Now sleep. We have a big day tomorrow. Every day was a big day. Wake at 5, get the kids to Mrs. Chen next door by 5:30, morning delivery route from 6 to noon, afternoon shift at the medical supply warehouse, evening deliveries if they called. Home by 9 if she was lucky, midnight if she wasn't. After the twins finally settled, Sienna stood in her kitchen that was barely bigger than a closet and counted her cash. $243. Rent was due in 6 days, $850. Marco needed a refill on his inhaler, $90 without insurance. The electric bill was overdue, $112. She pulled up her phone, checked her delivery app. 4 pending jobs for tomorrow. If she accepted them all, skipped lunch, drove fast, she'd make maybe $120. Not enough. Never enough. She opened the cabinet above the refrigerator and pulled out the old coffee tin where she kept the important papers. Birth certificates. Immunization records. Her grandmother's obituary. And underneath it all, hidden beneath a false bottom she'd created, the hospital bills she couldn't pay. $13,000 from the twins' birth. Marco's emergency room visit last year, when he couldn't breathe, $4,000. Sophia's broken arm from falling off the playground slide, $2,000. Numbers that made her want to cry or scream or both. She could have asked for help. Could have tracked down the man from Prague, done a DNA test, proved that Marco and Sophia were his. But she'd Googled him 6 months after the twins were born, when desperation had briefly overpowered pride.
Luca Moretti.
Organized crime. Money laundering. Suspected in 3 murders. Never convicted. Associated with the Red Rose Syndicate, one of the most powerful criminal organizations in the Southeast. She'd slammed her laptop shut and never searched again. Her children would not grow up in that world. They would not become leverage in mafia wars. They would not learn that violence was normal, that blood was business. They would be invisible, safe,
Free.
even if it meant she worked herself to death keeping them that way. Sienna made herself a cup of instant coffee, the cheap kind that tasted like burnt rubber, and sat at the rickety table that wobbled no matter how many folded napkins she shoved under the leg. She pulled out her notebook and started planning. If she picked up extra weekend shifts, if Marco's asthma held steady, if the van didn't break down, if nobody got sick, if nothing unexpected happened, she could maybe, possibly, make rent and bills for another month. That was the game. Survive another month. Then another. Keep your head down, keep moving, don't let anyone see you struggling. Don't let anyone know you exist. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, job opening. Night security at warehouse. $18 per hour. Interested. Sienna stared at the message. She hadn't applied for any security jobs. Didn't have security experience. This was either a scam or a mistake. She deleted it. At 5:15, she woke the twins and got them dressed. Marco's breathing was better, but still not great. She made a mental note to call the clinic, see if they had any sample inhalers. They'd given her one before, back when she'd been too proud to ask but desperate enough to accept. Mrs. Chen's today? Sophia asked, pulling on her pink sneakers. Yes, baby. I'll pick you up tonight. Will we see the man again? The one with Marco's eyes. No, Sienna said firmly. We won't see him again. She believed it when she said it. Believed that one strange encounter at a mansion was just bad luck, not fate. Believed that Luca Moretti had bigger problems than a delivery girl and her children. She was wrong. As they left the apartment, Sienna noticed the loose tile near the door. The one hiding her emergency cash, $300 she'd saved over 8 months. She checked it quickly. Still there. She didn't see the man in the stairwell taking her photo with a long-range lens. She didn't notice the GPS tracker placed under her van's rear bumper. And she had no idea that 8 miles away, Luca Moretti was arguing with his second-in-command about whether those children were worth starting a war over. You're being sentimental, Vittorio said, dropping the surveillance photos on Luca's desk like evidence at a trial. And sentiment gets people killed. Luca kept his face neutral, but his hands curled into fists beneath the desk. They'd been arguing for 20 minutes, and Vittorio was pushing harder than he ever had before. She's a delivery driver, Luca said coldly. Nothing more. A delivery driver whose son has Moretti eyes, Vittorio leaned forward. A delivery driver who shows up at your gates after 4 years. You don't find that convenient. I find it coincidental. There's no such thing as coincidence in our world. Vittorio pulled out another photo, this one a close-up of Sienna's face, exhausted and wary. The Calabrese family has been looking for leverage against you for months. The Bratva wants to move into our territory. The feds would love nothing more than to flip someone close to you. She's not close to me, but she was. Vittorio's voice dropped. Prague, 2021. You disappeared for 2 weeks. Told everyone you were handling business in Eastern Europe. I know you were injured. I know you went underground. He tapped the photo. I'm guessing she's the reason you survived. Luca's jaw tightened. Vittorio had been digging, which meant others might be digging too. Even if that's true, Luca said carefully, it doesn't make her a threat. It makes her leverage. Those children, whether they're yours or not, are weapons waiting to be used against us. Against you. Vittorio's voice turned almost gentle, which was somehow worse than anger. Luca, I've known you since you were 16. I watched your father raise you for this life. I helped you take control when he died. So believe me when I say this with respect. You're thinking like a man, not like a boss. Meaning you're letting emotion cloud your judgment. If those children are yours, they're a liability. If they're not yours, she's a plant from a rival family. Either way, we need to neutralize the situation before it becomes a problem. Luca stood slowly, using his height to intimidate. Define neutralize. Vittorio didn't flinch. Bring her in. Question her. Find out who sent her, what she wants. If she's innocent, we relocate her. New city, new identity, enough money to disappear and stay disappeared. If she's working for someone, he shrugged. We handle it. You mean kill her? I mean protect the syndicate. Vittorio's eyes were hard. You've eliminated threats before. Why is this different? Because she saved my life. Because she asked for nothing in return. Because I can still remember how she hummed while she cleaned my wounds, how she gave me her only blanket, how she looked at me like I was human instead of a monster. Because those children might be mine. We do nothing, Luca said. We watch her from a distance. If anyone approaches her, rivals, feds, anyone, we intervene. But we don't touch her. That's my decision. Luca's voice turned to ice. Or, are you questioning my authority? The room went silent. They both knew what that question meant. In the syndicate, challenging the boss's authority was tantamount to declaring mutiny. Vittorio raised his hands in surrender. Of course not, boss. I'm simply advising. Your advice is noted. Now get out. Vittorio gathered his photos, but paused at the door. The men are talking. They saw those kids.
They saw your reaction.
You can order me to stay quiet, but you can't stop the whispers. Then let them whisper. Whispers become rumors. Rumors become problems. Vittorio's face was unreadable. The old families, they're watching to see if you've gone soft. If they think you're distracted by a woman and her bastards, They'll move against us. Against you. Let them try. Luca, Vittorio's voice held something almost like concern. Your father taught you that family is weakness. That's why he kept your mother locked away. That's why he never acknowledged his other children. He understood that in this life, anyone you love becomes a target. My father was murdered in a restaurant while eating dinner with his mistress, Luca said quietly. His paranoia didn't save him. It just made him die alone.
Vittorio flinched.
Then don't make his mistakes. End this before it begins. Send her away, pay her off, make her forget she ever saw you. Protect those children by keeping them far away from your world. For a moment, Luca almost agreed. It would be the smart play, the safe play. Give Sienna enough money to start over somewhere else. Make sure she and the children were comfortable, protected from a distance, never knowing he was watching. Let them live invisible, like she wanted. But then he remembered Marco's wheezing cough. Felix had mentioned medical bills, ration medication. The boy, his son, was struggling to breathe while Luca sat in a mansion debating strategy. She stays in Naples, Luca said. Under our protection, whether she knows it or not. You're making a mistake. Then it's my mistake to make. Dismissed. Vittorio left without another word, but Luca could read the anger in his stiff shoulders, the calculation in his too-slow exit. Vittorio had been second in command for 8 years. Loyal, ruthless, ambitious. But ambition was a double-edged sword. It drove men to greatness or betrayal, depending on which path offered more power. Luca pulled out his secure phone and texted Felix, increased surveillance on Vittorio. I want to know everyone he talks to, everywhere he goes.
Quietly.
Then he made another call, this one to his financial manager. Set up an anonymous account. I want funds available for medical expenses, housing, emergencies. Untraceable back to me. How much? Whatever it takes. After hanging up, Luca returned to the window. The sun was climbing higher, burning off the morning fog. Somewhere out there, Sienna was driving her delivery route, probably exhausted, probably worried about bills and medicine, and keeping her children safe. She thought invisibility would protect them. She didn't understand that in his world, there was no such thing as invisible. There were only 2 types of people, those under protection and those who were prey. He'd make sure she and the children were the former, even if she never knew it. Even if it cost him everything. His phone buzzed with a message from Carlo, rivals asking questions about the delivery girl. Word is spreading. Luca closed his eyes. It had been less than 24 hours since Sienna appeared at his gate, and already the vultures were circling. Vittorio was right about one thing. This was going to become a problem. The only question was whether Luca could control it before it exploded. Prague, Czech Republic, 4 years earlier. The rain came down in sheets, turning the cobblestone streets into rivers. Luca pressed his hand against the wound in his shoulder, blood seeping through his fingers, despite the pressure. 3 blocks. He just needed to make it 3 more blocks to the safe house. A bullet had torn through his left shoulder during the ambush. His business partners, the Volkov brothers, had decided that killing him was easier than honoring their agreement. He'd barely escaped through a bathroom window. 2 blocks. His vision was starting to blur at the edges. The safe house was compromised. He couldn't go there. Couldn't contact his people without risking another attack. The Volkovs had someone inside his organization, feeding them information. He was alone in a foreign city, bleeding out, with nowhere to go. 1 block. His legs gave out. He collapsed against a doorway, rain mixing with blood, consciousness flickering like a dying light. This was it. This was how Luca Moretti died, not in a blaze of glory, but bleeding in some random doorway in Prague. Oh my God. A voice. Female. American accent. He tried to focus. A young woman stood over him, umbrella in hand, eyes wide with shock. She wore scrubs under a raincoat, a nurse, maybe, or a doctor.
Please, he managed.
Hospital, they'll find me. She understood immediately. People who needed hospitals but couldn't go to them were either criminals or people running from criminals. Either way, smart people walked away.
She didn't walk away.
Can you stand? She wedged herself under his good shoulder. My apartment's right here. Come on. He shouldn't have trusted her. In his world, kindness was usually a trap. But he was out of options and rapidly running out of blood. Her apartment was tiny, a studio that smelled like coffee and medical textbooks. She got him to the bathroom, sat him on the closed toilet, and started cutting away his shirt with practiced efficiency. You're not going to ask what happened, he said through gritted teeth. Would you tell me the truth? She was cleaning the wound, hands steady despite the blood.
No.
Then why waste time asking? She paused. The bullet went through. That's good. Bad news is you need stitches. I've got a first aid kit but no anesthesia. This is going to hurt. I've had worse. She gave him a towel to bite on and went to work. He'd been shot before, stitched up in basement clinics by doctors who didn't ask questions. But something about this was different. She worked with quiet concentration, occasionally humming under her breath, an old melody he didn't recognize but somehow found soothing. You're good at this, he said when she finished bandaging. Medical student. Second year, she washed her hands. Or I was before my grandmother got sick. Now I work 2 jobs and take online classes when I can. Why help me? She looked at him with dark eyes that held no judgment, no fear. Just simple human compassion. Because you were dying on my doorstep. What was I supposed to do? Step over you?
Most people would have.
Most people did. She gave him her bed and slept on the floor despite his protests. Brought him water and soup and antibiotics she probably couldn't afford to spare. For 3 days, he drifted in and out of fever while she changed his bandages and monitored his vitals. On the 4th day, the fever broke. He found her asleep at her tiny kitchen table, head resting on an open textbook. A poster of Prague's Charles Bridge hung crooked on the wall behind her. Empty coffee cups littered the counter, the cheap instant kind that tasted like cardboard. She'd saved his life and wouldn't accept a single dollar for it. On the 5th night, he was strong enough to sit up without getting dizzy. She made them dinner, pasta with Jared sauce, nothing fancy, and they talked. Really talked. She told him about Chicago, about losing her parents, about dreams of becoming a doctor that seemed further away every year. He told her carefully edited stories about growing up in Naples, about traveling for work, about feeling trapped in a life he didn't choose. He didn't tell her his real name, didn't tell her what he did, didn't tell her that men were hunting him. What's that song? He asked when she started humming while washing dishes. You hum it a lot. Oh, she smiled. Just something I made up. Helps me think. On the 7th night, his contact finally reached him through a secure channel. The threat had been neutralized. The Volkovs were dead, killed in a gas leak at their warehouse. It was safe to come home. He should have left immediately. Instead, he stayed 1 more night. They sat on her ratty couch, talking until dawn about everything and nothing. She fell asleep against his good shoulder, and he breathed in the scent of her hair, cheap shampoo and something uniquely her, and realized he was in danger of a different kind. Before he left, while she was still sleeping, he tried to leave cash on the counter. She caught him. I didn't help you for money, she said, shoving the bills back at him on the street outside. I helped you because you were bleeding. That's it. I want to see you again, he said, and meant it more than he'd meant anything in years. You know where I live, she smiled. When you're back in Prague, knock on the door. We'll get coffee. He kissed her then, soft and careful, a promise of something that might have been. I'm Luca, he told her. The truth, finally.
Anna, she said.
A lie he would later learn. But in that moment it was enough. He left Prague that morning, fully intending to come back. 2 weeks later, an assassination attempt nearly killed him in Naples. He went underground for months, trusting no one, moving constantly. By the time it was safe to return to Prague, she was gone. The apartment empty. No forwarding address. He'd searched for her half-heartedly at first, then desperately. But Anna, or whatever her real name was, had vanished like smoke. Now, standing in his office 4 years later, staring at surveillance photos of Sienna Costa, Luca finally understood. She hadn't disappeared. She'd been running. From him. From his world. From the danger that followed him like a shadow. And she'd been pregnant. He picked up his phone and called Felix. I need you to do something for me. And you're not going to like it. What? I need you to deliver a package. Anonymously. To Sienna Costa's apartment. Inside the package would be Marco's asthma medication, a 3-month supply. And nothing else. No note, no explanation. Just medicine for a child who needed it. If she was running from his world, the least he could do was make sure his son could breathe. Sienna knew something was wrong the moment she turned onto Market Street. Her usual delivery route took her through the industrial district, warehouses, loading docks, minimal foot traffic. But today, dispatch had rerouted her through the Naples outdoor market, claiming road construction on her normal path. The market was chaos. Vendors hawking fresh fish and produce, tourists taking photos, locals haggling over prices. Her van crawled through the narrow street at 5 miles per hour, trapped between produce stands and the crowd. Too many people. Too much noise. Too many places for someone to hide. She checked her rear-view mirror. A black SUV had been following her for the past 3 blocks, maintaining the same crawling pace. Different vehicle from the one outside her apartment, but the same tinted windows. The same sense of being watched. Mommy, I'm hungry. Sophia was strapped in her booster seat, swinging her legs. We'll get food soon, baby. Just let me finish this delivery. She shouldn't have brought them. But Mrs. Chun had a doctor's appointment, and Sienna couldn't afford to miss a shift. So the twins were spending the day in the van, coloring books and snacks spread across the back seat. The worst decision she'd ever made. The delivery address led her to a small restaurant on the edge of the market. She parked in the loading zone, checked the mirrors again. The SUV had stopped half a block back. Stay in a van, she told the twins. Doors locked. I'll be right back. She grabbed the package, imported olive oil, according to the label, and headed into the restaurant. The owner signed quickly, barely glancing at her. She was back outside in 90 seconds. The twins were gone. The van's back door hung open. Sophia's pink backpack lay on the ground. Marco's coloring book fluttered in the breeze, pages scattering across the pavement. Sienna's vision tunneled. Her heart stopped, restarted, hammered against her ribs.
Marco.
Sophia. She spun in circles, scanning the crowd. There, a flash of Sophia's yellow shirt disappearing between 2 vendor stalls. Sienna ran, shoving through tourists, knocking over a display of oranges. She found them in a narrow alley between buildings. 3 men surrounded her children. 2 were thick-necked and tattooed, blocking the exit. The third was older, silver-haired, wearing an expensive suit that looked obscene in the grimy alley. Sophia was crying silently, terrified. Marco stood in front of his sister, small fists clenched, trying to be brave. Step away from my children, Sienna's voice shook with fury and fear. The silver-haired man smiled. Ah, Mama Bear. We were just having a conversation with the little ones. Beautiful children. Such unusual eyes on the boy. I said step away. In a moment, he crouched down to Marco's level. Tell me, little man, do you know a man named Luca Moretti? Marco's eyes went wide. The nice man, with the big house. Don't answer him, Sienna said sharply. Marco, come here.
Now.
But the men blocked her path. One of them grabbed her arm when she tried to push past, his grip like iron, fingers digging into her bicep hard enough to bruise. Let go of me. Just a few questions, Miss Costa. The silver-haired man straightened. See, there's a rumor going around. About Luca Moretti and a delivery girl. About children with very distinctive eyes. The kind of information that's worth a lot of money to the right people. I don't know what you're talking about.
No.
He pulled out his phone, showed her a photo. It was from the night at Luca's villa. Her van in the driveway, Marco at the fountain. That moment of frozen recognition. This says otherwise. Sienna's mind raced. These weren't random criminals. They were organized, informed. They'd followed her, staged the reroute, waited for the perfect moment to corner her. "He's just a customer," she said desperately. "I delivered formula to his house. That's all." "Then why did he stop everything to watch you leave? Why did he stand in his driveway for 10 minutes after you drove away?" The man's smile widened. "Why did his security chief put protection detail on your apartment?" Protection detail. The black cars. The surveillance. Luca had been watching her. "I don't know anything," Sienna said. "Please, just let us go. They're 3 years old. They're innocent." "Innocent." The man laughed. "Sweetheart, in our world, there's no such thing as innocent. There are assets and liabilities. These children," he gestured at Marco and Sofia, "are very valuable assets, whether Moretti admits they're his or not." One of the thugs moved toward the twins. Sienna lunged, but the other man held her back. She screamed, kicked, fought like a wild animal. "Help! Someone help us." "No one's coming," the silver-haired man said. "This is Calabrese territory. We own these streets." Then a voice cut through the alley, cold and deadly. "Not anymore." Everyone froze. A man stepped into the alley entrance, young, lean, wearing jeans and a dark jacket. He looked ordinary except for the gun in his hand and the way he held it, like someone who'd used it before. "Red Rose," one of the thugs muttered. "That's right." The man's eyes never left the Calabrese soldiers. "The lady and her kids are under Moretti protection. You touch them, you start a war." The silver-haired man's smile faded. "Moretti's playing a dangerous game." "Not as dangerous as kidnapping his children in broad daylight." The Red Rose agent raised his gun slightly. "Walk away.
Now.
While you still can." A tense moment. Then the Calabrese men released Sienna and backed toward the opposite end of the alley. The silver-haired man paused before leaving. "Tell Moretti this isn't over. Tell him that hiding behind a woman and bastards makes him look weak. And weak men don't last long in our business." They disappeared into the market crowd. Sienna collapsed to her knees, pulling the twins into her arms. They were shaking, both crying now. She held them tight, her own tears mixing with theirs. The Red Rose agent lowered his gun. "Ma'am, I need you to come with me. It's not safe here." "Who are you?" "Someone who's keeping you alive." He pulled out his phone. "Boss, it's Tony. We have a situation." The Calabrese made a move. "Yeah, she's safe. Both kids are fine." "But boss," he paused, listening. Everyone saw it. The whole market saw them go after her. Word's going to spread fast. He hung up and looked at Sienna with something like pity. "Ma'am, your invisible life just ended. Luca Moretti is on his way, and when he gets here, everything changes." Luca arrived alone.
No armored convoy.
No armed guards flanking him. No bulletproof vest under his shirt. He walked through the Naples market in broad daylight wearing jeans and a white button-down, hands visible and empty, looking like any other man running errands. Except every criminal in a 6-block radius knew exactly who he was. Vendors went quiet as he passed. Tourists kept snapping photos, oblivious. But the locals, the ones who understood the invisible borders carved into the city, they knew. The Red Rose had just walked into Calabrese territory unarmed. Either incredibly brave or completely insane. Tony met him at the alley entrance. "Boss, this is a mistake. You should have brought." "Where are they?" "End of the alley." "But boss, the Calabrese soldiers are still in the area. If they see you here, unprotected." Luca pushed past him. Sienna was sitting on the ground, both twins wrapped in her arms. Her face was tear-streaked, furious, terrified. When she saw him, something flickered in her eyes, relief and rage warring for dominance. "You," she breathed. He crouched in front of them, his heart hammering. Marco's face was pressed against Sienna's shoulder. Sophia was crying softly. Both children were shaking. Are you hurt? His voice came out rougher than intended. Did they touch you? Did they? Sienna's voice cracked. Did they touch us? They grabbed my children, Luca. They threatened them. Because of you. The words hit like bullets. Because she was right. This was his fault. His world had found her despite his best efforts, and now his children were traumatized because of choices he'd made before they were even born. I know, he said quietly.
I'm sorry. Sorry?
She laughed, the sound brittle and broken. Sorry doesn't fix this. Sorry doesn't make them forget strange men dragging them into an alley. Marco lifted his head, those silver-gray eyes meeting Luca's. Are you the nice man? Luca's throat closed. Yeah, buddy. I'm the nice man. The bad men knew your name. Marco's voice was small. They said we were. Assets. You're not assets, Luca said fiercely. You're children. And no one is going to hurt you again. I promise. You can't promise that. Sienna stood abruptly, pulling the twins up with her. You can't promise anything except more danger. We need to leave. We need to disappear. Sienna? Don't, she held up a hand. Don't say my name like we're friends.
Like you know me. You don't know anything about our lives.
I know you're working 3 jobs. I know Marco needs asthma medication you can't afford. I know you're drowning in hospital bills and hiding from the world because you think invisibility equals safety. He stood slowly. I know you saved my life in Prague and never asked for anything in return. Her jaw tightened. That was different. Was it? You were just a man bleeding on my doorstep. You weren't. She gestured at him helplessly. You weren't this. A mafia boss with enemies who threatened children. I was always this, Sienna. You just didn't know it. Exactly. Her voice rose. I didn't know. I didn't choose this. And neither did they. She looked down at the twins, her expression breaking. They're 3 years old, Luca. They're supposed to worry about bedtime stories and learning their ABCs, not men with guns using them as leverage. He wanted to pull her into his arms, tell her everything would be okay. But he'd learned long ago that comfort without action was worthless. Come with me, he said instead. Absolutely not. It's not a request, Sienna. Your apartment isn't safe. Your delivery routes aren't safe. As of 20 minutes ago, every criminal organization in Florida knows you exist. They know the twins exist. They know, he paused, the words heavy on his tongue. They know I care about you. You don't even know me anymore. Are they mine? The question burst out before he could stop it. Marco and Sophia. Are they my children? Sienna went very still. Sophia had stopped crying, watching them with wide eyes. Marco was looking between them, confused but understanding something important was happening. Answer me, Luca said softly.
Please.
Does it matter? Sienna's voice was barely a whisper. You're going to protect us regardless, right? Because I saved your life once? Because you feel guilty? It matters to me. She closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they were filled with tears and resignation and something that might have been grief.
Yes, she said.
They're yours. The world tilted. Luca had suspected, had done the math, had seen his own eyes staring back at him from Marco's face. But hearing her say it, hearing the truth spoken aloud, it made everything real in a way that evidence and logic never could. He had children. A son and daughter he'd never held as infants, never watched take their first steps, never tucked into bed at night. 3 years of their lives gone. Lost because he disappeared into his dangerous world and Sienna had been too smart or too afraid to follow. Why didn't you tell me? His voice cracked. Why didn't you find me when you found out you were pregnant? Sienna let out a bitter laugh. I tried to find you, Luca. Googled your name 6 months after they were born because I was desperate and alone and terrified. Want to know what I found? Articles about murder investigations, money laundering, organized crime. She wiped angrily at her tears. I found out that the man I saved, the man She stopped, shook her head. I found out he was a monster. I'm not. Yes, you are, she met his eyes. Maybe not to me. Maybe not in that apartment in Prague when you were weak and wounded and human. But to the rest of the world? You're exactly the monster they say you are. And I will not let my children become monsters, too. Before he could respond, Sophia tugged on Sienna's sleeve. Mama, I don't understand. Is the nice man our daddy? The question hung in the air between them, innocent, devastating, demanding an answer that would change everything. Sienna looked at Luca, and in her eyes he saw every emotion she'd buried for 3 years. Fear, anger, longing, regret. And underneath it all, a question of her own. What now? Yes, Luca said, dropping to one knee so he was eye level with his children. I'm your daddy. And I know you don't know me yet, but I'm going to keep you safe. All of you. I swear it. Sienna's hand shot out and cracked across his face, a slap that echoed through the alley. Don't make promises you can't keep, she said coldly. And don't you dare put their safety at risk to soothe your guilty conscience. Then she grabbed the twins' hands and started toward Tony. Where's this safe place? Because we're leaving.
Now.
Luca touched his stinging cheek and smiled despite everything. She still had that fire. Good. They were going to need it. The safe house wasn't what Sienna expected.
No fortress.
No armed guards patrolling the perimeter. Just a modest 2-story beach house on a quiet stretch of coastline, painted pale blue with white shutters. A wooden deck overlooked the Gulf, and the sound of waves was the only noise for miles. It looked like a vacation rental, not a hiding place. This is it. Sienna stood in the driveway, the twins pressed against her sides. This is it. Luca grabbed their bags from Tony's car, the few belongings they'd hastily packed from her apartment. 2 security guards, both ex-military. They'll patrol the perimeter, but stay out of sight. No one knows about this place except my most trusted people. And how many of your most trusted people have you vetted lately? Sienna's voice dripped with sarcasm. Because from what I saw today, your security has some serious holes. Luca's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. He unlocked the door and held it open. The interior was clean, comfortable. Hardwood floors, overstuffed couches, a kitchen that actually looked lived in rather than staged. Upstairs, there were 3 bedrooms, one for the twins, one for Sienna, and one that Luca claimed before she could argue. You're staying here? Sienna spun on him. Absolutely not. Someone needs to be here. The guards are good, but they're not enough. Then hire more guards. You don't get to play house with us just because. Because I'm their father? His voice was sharp. Because someone tried to kidnap them 4 hours ago? Because every rival family in Florida now knows you exist and will use you to get to me? This is kidnapping. Sienna's voice rose. You can't just drag us to some beach house and expect us to. Mommy? Sophia's small voice cut through their argument.
I'm scared.
Sienna's anger deflated instantly. She knelt down, pulling both twins close. I know, baby. I know. But you're safe now. Are the bad men coming back? Marco asked. No, Luca said firmly, crouching beside them. I promise. No one is going to hurt you here. Sienna shot him a warning look. Don't make promises. But the twins seemed to relax slightly. Can we see the beach? Sophia asked. Tomorrow, Sienna said. Right now, let's get you both cleaned up and fed. The next hour passed in tense domesticity. Sienna made grilled cheese sandwiches while Luca unpacked their bags. The twins explored their new bedroom, a cheerful space with bunk beds and a window overlooking the water. After dinner, Marco's breathing got rough again. Sienna dug through her purse for his inhaler, her heart sinking when she found it empty. I used the last dose this morning, she said quietly. I was supposed to pick up his refill after my shift. I'll handle it. Luca was already on his phone. You can't just. It'll be here in 30 minutes. My doctor keeps emergency supplies. He paused. And, before you argue, this isn't charity. He's my son. His medical care is my responsibility now. His medical care has been my responsibility for 3 years, Sienna snapped. Don't act like you get to swoop in and play hero. I'm not trying to be a hero. I'm trying to help. By trapping us here? By turning our lives upside down. By keeping you alive. Luca's control finally cracked. Do you understand what would have happened if Tony hadn't been there? The Calabrese would have taken them. They would have hurt them to hurt me. And you, his voice broke. You would have done something brave and stupid and gotten yourself killed trying to protect them. Sienna stared at him, seeing the fear beneath his anger. Real fear, raw and unguarded. I would have, she said quietly. I would have died before letting them take my children. Our children. The words hung between them. Our children. A claim, a partnership she'd never agreed to but couldn't deny. I need air. Sienna walked out onto the deck, leaving Luca with the twins. She stood at the railing, watching the sun set over the gulf. The sky turned orange and pink, beautiful and indifferent to the chaos of her life. Behind her, through the glass door, she could hear Luca's deep voice and the children's laughter. Can you tell us a story? Sophia was asking. What kind of story? A princess story. I don't know many princess stories, Luca admitted. But I know one about a brave woman who saved a man's life once. Want to hear that? Sienna pressed her forehead against the cool railing. He was telling them about Prague. Not the violence or the danger, but the kindness. The courage of a stranger who'd help someone in need. When she came back inside 20 minutes later, both twins were asleep, Sophia on the couch, Marco in Luca's arms. He was sitting in an armchair, holding their son like he might break, stroking his dark hair with surprising gentleness. His breathing's better, Luca said softly. The medication arrived. Sienna nodded, too tired to fight. She lifted Sophia, carried her upstairs. When she came back down, Luca was still holding Marco. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. I don't know how to be a father. My own father was, he stopped. He taught me how to run a criminal empire, not how to read bedtime stories. Then maybe you should have thought about that before getting involved in our lives. I didn't know you were pregnant. I didn't know they existed. His eyes met hers. But I know now. And I'm not walking away. Even if walking away is what's best for them. Is it? He stood carefully, cradling Marco. Is it best for them to grow up without a father? To watch you work yourself to death trying to provide? To live in fear because you can't protect them from people like the Calabrese. I've kept them safe for 3 years. By running. By hiding. His voice was gentle but unyielding. That's not living, Sienna. That's surviving. And now that my world knows about them, you can't even do that anymore. He carried Marco upstairs, leaving Sienna alone with the truth she'd been avoiding. Her invisible life was over. The moment those silver-gray eyes had met in that driveway, everything had changed. She could hate Luca for dragging them into his world, but the alternative, raising the twins alone while constantly looking over her shoulder, was no longer an option. She curled up on the couch where Sophia had been sleeping and closed her eyes. Tomorrow she'd figure out how to navigate this impossible situation. Tomorrow she'd build new walls between her and Luca. Tonight, she was just too tired to fight. Upstairs, Luca stood at the twins' bedroom door, watching them sleep. Marco in the bottom bunk, Sophia in the top. His children. His responsibility. His greatest vulnerability. Vittorio had been right about one thing. In their world, family was a weapon. But maybe it was time to change the rules. Vittorio waited until Luca had been at the beach house for 3 days before making his move. 3 days of watching his boss play father. 3 days of intel reports describing bedtime stories and sandcastle building. 3 days of Luca Moretti, the most feared crime boss in Florida, choosing children over the syndicate. It was pathetic. And it was exactly the opening Vittorio needed. He called the meeting for noon at the main estate, summoning all 12 lieutenants. By the time Luca got word and started driving back, Vittorio had already laid his trap. Gentlemen, Vittorio stood at the head of the conference table, Luca's usual seat. We have a problem. Our boss has compromised the entire organization for a woman and 2 bastard children. Murmurs around the table. Some uncomfortable, some intrigued. That's a serious accusation, Carlo said carefully. He was loyal to Luca, but even his expression showed doubt. The boss is protecting his family. That's not compromise. Isn't it? Vittorio slid photos across the table. The market incident was public.
Messy.
It showed weakness. Now, every rival family knows Luca Moretti has a vulnerability. And what happens when your enemy knows your weakness? They exploit it, someone muttered. Exactly, Vittorio leaned forward. The Calabrese are already circling. The Brava sent inquiries about our stability. The feds are watching, waiting for us to fracture. And where is our boss? Playing house at a beach cottage while his empire crumbles. He's protecting his children, Carlo insisted. His blood. Are they? Vittorio let the question hang. Has he done a DNA test? Has he confirmed these children are his? Or is he simply taking the word of a woman who conveniently reappeared after 4 years with twins who need his money? The room went quiet. It was a fair question, one several men had privately wondered. Even if they are his, Vittorio continued, the old code is clear. Family is kept separate from business.
Hidden.
Protected through distance, not proximity. Luca's father understood this. He kept his wife locked away, his other children secret. He never let emotion cloud his judgment. His father died alone, Carlo said. Shot in a restaurant while his family slept safely at home. Is that the legacy you want? I want the syndicate to survive. Vittorio's voice rose. And it won't survive if our boss is too distracted by domesticity to see the threats around us. So I'm calling a vote, as is my right under syndicate law, when the boss is deemed unfit to lead.
Carlo stood abruptly.
This is mutiny. This is preservation. 7 votes and leadership transfers until Luca proves he can prioritize the organization over his personal life. Vittorio looked around the table. All in favor. 5 hands rose immediately. Men Vittorio had been cultivating for months, promising power and position. 6 votes. Just 1 more needed. The youngest lieutenant, a kid named Danny, who'd only been promoted 6 months ago, stared at his hands. Luca had given him that promotion over Vittorio's objections, had trusted him with important territory. Danny, Vittorio said softly. Your vote. Danny swallowed hard. The boss has always been good to me, and he'll be good to you again, once he remembers his priorities. This is temporary. Corrective. We're not overthrowing him, we're saving him from himself. Danny's hand rose slowly. 7 votes. Motion passes, Vittorio said. Effective immediately, I assume interim leadership until... The conference room doors slammed open. Luca stood in the doorway, still wearing jeans and a t-shirt from the beach house, his eyes cold as winter. Until what, Vittorio? The room froze. No one had heard him arrive, hadn't seen his car in the driveway. But there he stood, flanked by Tony and 2 other loyalists, all armed. Boss, Vittorio recovered quickly. We were just... Staging a coup, Luca walked slowly to the table, his presence filling the room. 7 votes against me. That's the number needed to challenge leadership under extreme circumstances. Funny thing about extreme circumstances, though, they require proof that the boss is incapable of leading. He pulled out his phone, tapped the screen. The conference room's display lit up with surveillance footage. Vittorio meeting with Calabrese soldiers. Vittorio on the phone, clearly visible, gesturing as he talked. Vittorio passing an envelope to a man they all recognized as a Calabrese lieutenant. This was taken yesterday, Luca said quietly. Want to tell everyone what you were discussing? Vittorio's face went pale. I was gathering intelligence. You were tipping them off about the safe house location. Luca's voice was ice. You told the Calabrese exactly where to find Sienna and my children. You orchestrated this entire crisis to make me look weak, so you could take my place. The room erupted. Men shouting, chairs scraping. Carlo pulled his gun on Vittorio, who raised his hands slowly. You have no proof of that, Vittorio said. I have recordings. Luca played audio, Vittorio's voice, crystal clear. The beach house on Pelican Drive. He's there with the woman and kids. Light security. Hit them tonight, and Moretti will be too busy mourning to notice me taking control. Silence. Absolute, terrible silence. You sold out his children, Carlo said, his gun still trained on Vittorio. You sold out family. They're not family. Vittorio's composure finally cracked. They're a liability. An anchor around his neck. I was trying to save the syndicate from his weakness. My weakness? Luca was in Vittorio's face now, fury barely contained. You want to see weakness? Weakness is betraying your oath because you're too ambitious to wait your turn. Weakness is selling out children to our enemies because you're scared of change. The old ways kept us strong. The old ways killed my father. The old ways turn us into monsters who die alone. Luca stepped back. But you're right about one thing. I have been compromised. I've been so focused on protecting my children that I didn't see the rot in my own house. He looked around the table at the 7 men who'd voted against him. Here's what's going to happen. Vittorio, you're out.
Permanently.
Carlo will escort you to the property line, and if you ever set foot in my territory again, you won't leave alive. He turned to the others. As for the rest of you, you have a choice. You can leave with Vittorio and take your chances with whatever family will have you. Or you can stay, knowing that things are changing. What kind of changes? Danny asked, his voice shaking. The kind where we stop pretending family is weakness. The kind where we build something that doesn't require us to sacrifice everyone we love for power. Luca's voice rang with conviction. My children will inherit the syndicate one day. And I'll be damned if I leave them a legacy of paranoia and bloodshed.
Vittorio laughed bitterly.
You're signing our death warrant. The other families will eat us alive. Let them try, Luca nodded to Carlo. Get him out of here. As Vittorio was dragged from the room, he called back. They're already coming, Luca. The Calabrese are moving on the beach house tonight. I gave them everything, routes, security codes, guard schedules. You'll be too late to stop them. Luca's blood turned to ice.
Sienna. Marco.
Sophia. He was already running. The storm hit at 8 p.m., turning the Gulf into a churning black mass. Sienna was reading to the twins when the power went out. Not flickering, just gone, plunging the beach house into complete darkness except for lightning flashes through the windows. It's okay, she said, keeping her voice steady despite her racing heart. Just the storm. Let me find some flashlights. But something felt wrong. The guard should have checked in by now. The backup generator should have kicked on. She tucked the twins into their beds. Stay here. Don't come out until I say so, understand? Where's Luca? Marco asked. He'd started calling him that instead of the nice man, not daddy yet, but getting closer. He'll be back soon, she hoped. Downstairs, she found a flashlight in the kitchen and tried her phone. No signal. The landline was dead. Every instinct screamed danger. Then she heard it. Footsteps on the deck. Too many footsteps. Sienna killed the flashlight and moved to the stairs. Marco, Sophia, she whispered up. Remember the game we practiced? Hide and seek in the dark. Yes, Sophia whimpered. Go to the hiding spot.
Now.
Don't come out for anyone except me or Luca. Promise. Promise. She heard them scrambling. The closet she'd shown them, with the false panel leading to a crawl space under the eaves. It wasn't much, but it was something. The front door exploded inward. 4 men poured through, flashlights cutting through the darkness. Sienna recognized one from the market, the silver-haired Calabrese. Sienna Costa, he called out pleasantly. We're just here to talk. Make this easy, and no one gets hurt. She grabbed a kitchen knife, backed toward the stairs. Get out of my house. Not your house. Moretti's house. And he's not here to protect you, the silver-haired man. She'd heard someone call him Romano. Stepped closer. Where are the children?
Gone.
Luca moved them this afternoon. Liar, Romano nodded to his men. Find them. 2 soldiers headed for the stairs. Sienna lunged, slashing wildly with the knife. She caught one across the arm. He cursed, backhanded her. She went down hard, tasting blood. Upstairs. Now, Romano ordered. Sienna crawled toward the stairs, trying to block their path. One of them kicked her aside. She heard them ransacking the bedrooms, throwing open doors, checking closets. "They're not here," one shouted down. Romano crouched beside Sienna, grabbed her hair, yanked her head back.
Where are
"They. Go to hell." He pressed a gun against her temple. Wrong answer. Lightning flashed, illuminating the room, and the figure standing in the shattered doorway.
Luca?
He was soaked from the rain, breathing hard, and bleeding from a wound on his shoulder. Behind him, she could see bodies, the Calabrese guards who'd been stationed outside. "Let her go, Romano." Romano smiled, standing but keeping the gun trained on Sienna. "Moretti, glad you could make it. Though you're too late. My men found your security guards. Found your little hiding spot. We own this beach." "You don't own anything." Luca's voice was dead calm. "Last chance. Walk away." "Or what? You're alone, wounded, and outnumbered." Romano cocked the gun. "I could kill her right now. Make you watch. Then we find those kids and—"
Sienna didn't think.
She just moved, twisted, grabbed Romano's wrist, sank her teeth into his hand. He screamed. The gun went off, the bullet punching into the ceiling. Then everything happened at once. Luca was across the room in seconds, colliding with Romano. They went down in a tangle of fists and fury. The other Calabrese soldiers drew weapons, but then Tony and 4 Red Rose soldiers burst through the back door.
Gunfire.
Shouting. Chaos. Sienna scrambled up the stairs, her ears ringing.
Marco.
Sophia. "It's Mommy." The crawlspace panel slid open. 2 terrified faces peered out. "Come on, baby, we have to move." A hand grabbed her ankle. One of the Calabrese soldiers, blood streaming from a head wound, dragging her back. She kicked, connected with his face, but he held on. Then Luca was there, grabbed the man, slammed him against the wall with brutal efficiency. The soldier crumpled. Luca turned to her, and she saw it. The same look from Prague. Wounded, desperate, but still fighting. Still protecting. "Wine cellar," he gasped. "Through the kitchen. Hidden door behind the pantry. Take them and lock it from inside." "What about you?" "I'll hold them off." He pressed a gun into her hand. She'd never held one before, and it felt alien and heavy. "Point and pull. Don't hesitate. Keep them safe."
Luca.
He kissed her. Hard, brief, tasting like rain and blood, and 4 years of everything unsaid. "Go." She gathered the twins and ran, down the stairs, through the kitchen where Tony was grappling with a Calabrese soldier, through the pantry. The hidden door was there, just like Luca said. Stone steps leading down into darkness. The cellar was old, maybe original to the property. Wine racks lined the walls, and the air smelled like earth and fermentation. Sienna found a heavy bolt on the inside of the door and threw it. Above them, the battle raged.
Gunfire.
Breaking glass. Men shouting. Marco was crying silently. Sophia clung to her neck. Sienna held them both, her own tears mixing with theirs, and listened to the man she'd once saved fighting for his life to save theirs. Then, through the chaos, she heard Vittorio's name. Heard Romano shouting about betrayal, about being promised an easy target. And suddenly Sienna understood. This wasn't just about her and the children. This was about internal syndicate politics. Vittorio had orchestrated this. Used them as bait to get Luca killed. She pulled out her phone. Still no signal, but she remembered Luca mentioning encrypted communications. She fumbled through the settings until she found an app she didn't recognize. Opened it. A contact list. Names she didn't know, except one, Carlo. She typed fast. Vittorio betrayed Luca. Gave Calabrese the house location, security codes, everything. He's trying to take over. Check the recordings from his meetings. This is Sienna. Sent. Above them, the gunfire was slowing. Either the fight was ending, or everyone was dead. Sienna held her children tighter and prayed to a god she'd stopped believing in years ago. Prayed that the man she'd saved in Prague, the man who'd given her these beautiful, terrifying children, would survive one more night. Prayed that his world wouldn't swallow them all whole. The door to the cellar shuddered. Someone was trying to break through. Sienna raised the gun with shaking hands, pointed it at the door, and waited. The cellar door stopped shuddering. Then Luca's voice, hoarse and exhausted. "Sienna. It's me. It's over." She lowered the gun with shaking hands, threw back the bolt. Luca stood there, covered in blood, some his, some not. Behind him, the beach house was destroyed. Bullet holes in the walls, broken furniture, shattered glass everywhere. But he was alive. "The Calabrese?" she asked. "Dead or scattered?" "Romano's in custody. He'll face syndicate justice." Luca's eyes found the twins, who were clinging to Sienna's legs. "Are you hurt? Any of you?" "We're okay," Sienna's voice cracked. "Luca, I sent a message. About Vittorio. I hope that message saved everything." He smiled grimly. "Carlo arrested Vittorio before he could flee. The recordings I had, plus your testimony about the betrayal, the lieutenants turned on him completely. The coup is over." The twins ran to him suddenly, Sophia wrapping around his leg, Marco hugging his waist. Luca went very still, then slowly knelt and pulled them both close. "You're bleeding," Marco said, touching the wound on Luca's shoulder, the same shoulder Sienna had stitched 4 years ago.
I'm okay, buddy.
"I promise." "Don't make promises you can't keep," Sienna said softly, echoing her own words. But this time, there was no anger in them. Luca looked up at her. These 3 people who'd become his entire world in less than a week. "Then I'll keep this one. I swear it." 2 weeks later. The meeting was unprecedented. 5 families gathered in neutral territory, a private estate outside Tampa. The Calabrese, the Bratva, the Chicago Outfit, the New York Commission, and the Red Rose Syndicate. Every major criminal organization in the eastern United States assembled because Luca Moretti had called for a truce summit. Sienna watched from a secure room upstairs, the twins playing quietly beside her with new toys that Luca had bought. She shouldn't be here. Luca had wanted her safe at a different location, but she'd insisted. If he was going to risk everything, she needed to see it. On the monitors, she could see the conference table. Luca sat at the head, Carlo beside him. The other bosses looked skeptical, hostile. They smelled blood in the water after the internal coup attempt. "Gentlemen," Luca began. "Thank you for coming. I know trust is in short supply, so I'll be direct. The old ways are killing us." Bold words from someone who just survived a betrayal, the Bratva boss said with a thick accent. "I survived because the old ways failed. Vittorio believed that family was weakness, that showing humanity made me vulnerable. He was wrong." Luca pulled out a folder, slid copies across the table. "These are our financial projections. In 10 years, 3 of the families represented here will be extinct. The feds are winning, not through force, but through patience. They're waiting for us to destroy each other." "What's your point?" The Calabrese interim boss, Romano's successor, asked coldly. "My point is that we need a new doctrine. Peace, not through fear, but through mutual benefit." Luca stood. "I'm proposing something radical. I'm returning all disputed territories that the Red Rose took from the Calabrese over the past 5 years. No conditions.
No payment."
The room erupted. Sienna's hand went to her mouth. "You're giving up empire?" someone shouted. "I'm choosing survival over empire. Those territories cost us too much blood, too many soldiers, too many resources defending. I'm refocusing on legitimate businesses. Construction.
Shipping.
Investments. The future isn't in street corners, it's in boardrooms." "You've gone soft," the Chicago representative said. "That woman and those bastards." Luca's voice turned to ice. "Careful. It's true though, isn't it? You're making decisions based on emotion. I'm making decisions based on legacy." Luca pulled out his phone, projected an image on the screen behind him. Marco and Sofia, laughing on the beach, building sandcastles. "These are my children," he said clearly. "My heirs. In 20 years, they'll inherit what I leave behind. And I refuse to leave them a legacy of paranoia, violence, and early graves." He looked around the table. "How many of you have buried sons? Brothers? How many of you sleep with guns under your pillows and poison testers at your tables? How many of you trust anyone completely?" Silence. The old ways made us powerful, but they also made us monsters. "I'm choosing a different path." Luca's voice rang with conviction. "The Red Rose Syndicate will honor all existing agreements, return disputed territories, and seek peaceful resolutions first. If you see this as weakness and try to exploit it," his smile was sharp and dangerous, "you'll discover I can still be a monster when necessary. But I won't be a monster to my own family. Not anymore." He gestured to the folders. "In there, you'll find proposed treaties. Fair terms. Mutual benefit. Take them or leave them. But understand, the world is changing. We can change with it, or we can die clinging to the old ways like my father did. Alone. Paranoid. Murdered while eating dinner." The Bratva boss spoke first. "And if we agree to your peace, what guarantee do we have you won't betray us later?" Luca looked up at the camera, directly at Sienna, though the others couldn't see. "Because I have something worth more than power now. I have a family who's teaching me to be human again. And humans keep their word." The vote took 3 hours. In the end, 4 families agreed to the treaty. Only Chicago refused, and they were isolated enough that it didn't matter. When Luca came upstairs, he looked exhausted but lighter somehow, like a weight had lifted. "You gave up half your territory," Sienna said quietly. The twins had fallen asleep on the couch. "I gave up the parts that were killing me," he sat beside her. "I can't change what I am, Sienna. I can't stop being part of this world. But I can change how I exist in it. For them?" She gestured at the sleeping children. "For all of you," he took her hand, the first time she'd let him since the beach house. "I know you don't trust me. I know I have to earn that. But I'm asking for a chance. Not to play house or pretend we're something we're not. Just a chance to try." Sienna looked at their sleeping children, then at this man who'd been a stranger, a patient, a memory, and now something she couldn't quite name. Not a monster, not a savior, just a man trying to build something better from bloody foundations. "One chance," she said finally. "But Luca, if this world ever threatens them again, I'm gone. I'll disappear so completely you'll never find us." "Fair enough," he squeezed her hand. "Then I'll make sure it never does." Marco stirred, mumbling in his sleep. "Papa." The word hung in the air, an acceptance, a promise, a new beginning. Luca closed his eyes, and for the first time in 12 years, he didn't see his father's blood on a restaurant floor. He saw a future. Messy, complicated, but alive with possibility. Family wasn't collateral. Family was the future.